Your attention, please. It's time for the final countdown. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Hey everybody, welcome to this edition of Doc's Taking on the Mormish. I am your host, Doc. The clinic is open, and let's get that cure for the common moop. Hey everybody, this is Doc, and we are here today live for Doc's Clinic. And today we have another video we're bringing to you from Mr. Killoran, talking about this unknown treason that all SovCit moops like to talk about. And so we wanted to get this out to you as soon as possible. Again, please remember, Mr. Killoran is the gift that keeps on giving, and we appreciate that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this video going for you. We couldn't pass this up. It was just too much, so we had to let it go, and here it is.
Hey, how's everybody doing today? So, a couple more things I wanted to address.
He's always so polite in the very beginning, but listen to him as he goes through this. He just seems to get more and more upset, like typical SovCits do. You're the one thing you're going to notice too in this video: a lot of name calling, a lot of blaming everybody else, pointing the finger, and just a lot of falsehoods, a lot of fiction in his video. And he has somewhat laid off the constant phone calls, recordings to the police department. In this one, though, you're going to get something really cool. He's going to start talking about the contracts he's going to be sending to these officials, and how he says silence is consent. Well, that's not true either. Silence is not consent. As much as SovCits and moops like to think that, that isn't the truth. So let's go ahead.
Namely, the idea of treason. What is going on right now in our country, and make no mistake about it, is traitors performing treasonous acts against the people, we the people, simply for profit, for racketeering purposes, extortion.
Now that racketeering, typical SovCit montage of, yeah, it's racketeering, it's treason. So those things seem to go along with them. They like talking about the RICO Act a lot, but they don't actually understand the RICO Act. Excuse me.
To make money, to manipulate the financial systems, to not only for them to make money themselves by getting paid in their positions, but they do things through the courts, these so-called public servants, and use the courts to create securities, create bonds, create financial instruments that they monetize or securitize, whichever the correct term would be, out of the SovCit trust that each because they were never told the truth, never given proper
him talking about the whole SKV trust or SovCit trust. It's so funny to listen to him bring this up, because it's another term. It's an Australian term. This is their Australian term for the straw man here that they say these SovCits say we have, but yet still no hard evidence, no proof whatsoever. Nobody can ever show this. Doing a search for your corporate name, supposedly your corporation that you're named after. But again, he brings that up. And what's funny is, again, he has no idea what that whole entire law back in 1666 actually is and what it was meant for, that trust. It's a British law. It's a UK law. It's not a US law. It never was. So they took something because they don't expect you, again, to research this stuff. They think that if I say this, it sounds so official and real, and it doesn't help that some other SovCit took cherry picked, which they're greatly known for, what they wanted to use, and then use that to, again, keep the ball rolling with all the fallacies.
Information, so they're taken advantage of, simply so that way the court can access these trusts and create these financial instruments and sell.
Again, the courts don't access anything. They don't create anything out of these trusts. They don't exist.
Sell them on the stock market or on the open market for profits. I mean, even though they're sold at discounted rates, the court still profits. The organization itself still profits because it's something made out of nothing, and then they sell it off. And so, if the bond's $50,000, even though they might not get a full $50,000, whatever they get out of that sale is profit for them.
So again, the whole point of the bond is to make sure you come to court, you get that money back. So if, say, for instance, they set a $50,000 bond on you, and the judge is like, okay, I'm only gonna request 5%, or 1% of that, whatever. You pay that to the bonds bailsman, who again took out their money on you and paid the court that bond, but they only took a percentage. So basically, what happens if you don't show up to court, they're going to cash in on that bond. They're going to get that full $50,000. Okay. However, if you show up to court after your court date, you get a neat little receipt, believe it or not, and you turn that back into the bails bonds company, and you get your money back because you showed up to court. The whole point of the bond is to make sure you show up to court or show up to whatever the judge is saying you need to show up to. So again, just sometimes I just
now, one thing I want you to consider, and this is what I'm going to do when I send these contracts out. In the contracts that I'm going to send to these people, these persons, acting on behalf of Zanesville Police Department, acting on behalf of City of Zanesville, acting on behalf of Muskingum County Court of Common Pleas. These bad actors, when they receive my contracts, in the contracts, it's going to be stated in there that they committed treason.
He's going to state that they committed treason with no proof of treason. He's going to take the U.S. Constitution, where it talks about the law of treason, but yet he has no proof. Okay, so you're saying that there's going to be treason in your contract, but you've got to have proof to back that up. You can't just blame somebody or accuse them of treason with no proof. Now, what his proof is the fact that he screwed up. He got busted by law enforcement, the constant harassment to the dispatchers, to these women that hold that job, to these professional women that he likes to call every derogatory name he can think of. And he didn't like what happened to him because of his actions. So he's going to come out and say, well, you committed treason. Well, prove it. So, and we'll get into you'll hear him say now that they're not going to reply in acquiesce. Silence is consent. No, it's not. Silence is not consent.
SKV Trust receive my contracts.
Apologize, I went back a little bit.
In the contracts, it's going to be stated in there that they committed treason. And when they acquiesce, because they will, these people are not going to admit what they're doing.
You can't admit something you've done if you haven't done it. Okay? Again, you are now, because you're accusing, you have the burden of proof. You have to prove these acts of treason. So again, you got to show it.
They're having too much fun and making too much money and hiding behind this facade of immunity to really think that anything's really going to happen to them. They think that they're completely immune and free from all repercussions. But in these contracts, it's going to state that they willingly, knowingly uh, committed treason against we the people.
So there it is. They willingly and knowingly committed treason. But what's the treasonous act? What did they do? Okay. So here's what I did. Okay. I went to the legal dictionary on treason, okay? Because I'm dying to know what excuse me, what are treasonous acts, okay? So the definition of treason is a betrayal of trust or confidence or breach of faith, treachery, a violation of one's allegiance to one's government or sovereign. And sovereign is like a king or queen, which there's not many of those left. The criminal offense of acting to overthrow one's government or of assisting others to do so. Okay. The word was original Syrah, 1200 AD, Middle English, Old French, Treason. So what I want to know is, what are acts of treason? Okay. So here we are, treason during wartime. Well, it's I don't think this would be considered war. But the Constitution is specific, however, that the treason clause can only be applied for acts committed during times of war. While certain acts committed during peacetime may be illegal, they would not be considered treason according to the Constitution's definition. An example of treason during peacetime would be in 1946, an individual was caught selling both classified information and weapons to the Soviet Union. He was put on trial in 1947, convicted of both crimes, though he was not charged with treason because the prosecution could not prove their actions prior to the end of World War II in 1945. In this example of treason, not only were the U.S. and USSR allies during the Great War, but the U.S. was no longer in a state of war during the periods of which he was convicted. So that's an example of treason during peacetime. Now, there's an intent to commit treason. The act of treason requires the individual to have the intent to commit a traitorous act. This is similar to other serious crimes, such as first-degree murder, in which the perpetrator must have intended to engage in the act. By this definition, someone who inadvertently aids an enemy of the United States during wartime has not committed treason. There's allegiance in treason. The Constitution specifically addresses the issue of allegiance in treason, stating that a person owing allegiance to the United States, that's United States citizens, that's us, may be subject to charges of treason for certain acts. Allegiance refers to the loyalty owed to one's government. In the United States, one need not be a citizen of the U.S. to owe an allegiance for the purpose of charges of treason. People can owe a temporary allegiance to the U.S. government even if they are aliens. During the time they live in the U.S., also treasonous acts need not be committed on U.S. soil to be charged and punished as treasons. So again, he's got a lot of things that he's got to really, really show treason. Now, excuse me, the punishment for treason, English common law took treason to the crown very seriously, assigning the penalty of death by beheading. After the traitor had been drawn and quartered, modern law still views treason against the U.S. government with a harsh eye, though torture has never been a valid punishment on U.S. soil. According to the Constitution, Congress has the authority to set punishment for treason, though it cannot impose penalties beyond the traitor's life. This is specified because in historic England, someone convicted of treason was considered to be dead to the eyes of the law, thus nullifying his claim to personal and real property, even to detriment of his descendants. In the United States, Congress has no such power, though it may sentence a traitor to the death penalty. Modern law on treason found in the U.S. Code Title 18, Part 1, Chapter 115, Section 2381 states, whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason and shall suffer death or shall be imprisoned not less than 5 years and fined under this title, but not less than $10,000, shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States. So just in reading this, he's going to have a very hard time approving treason. And here, it's really weird. Here's 20 acts. There's a whole list that we can look at, or 20 acts of treason in American history. Former vice president was tried for treason in 1807. James Wilkinson was involved in the treacherous activities. The Fries Rebellion led to treasonous charges against John Fries in 1798. I mean, there is a whole list of what treasonous acts are. But what's really odd about this is he's going to have a very hard time. Right here, the Whiskey Rebellion was an armed uprising against the federal government over taxes. That was during the first term of George Washington. You have a former, like I said, former vice president in 1807. Aaron Burr was the vice president of the United States, and when he fought his famous duel with Alexander Hamilton, which damaged his political career beyond measure. So he had that. I mean, we go through here. It's got to be pretty serious, and I would beg to differ that he's going to find anything. So I'm sorry we went on that little history trail, but here we go.
Against me.
So treason against him. Well, treason isn't against you. What his problem is again that butthurt that he's feeling from being arrested for his own actions, for breaking the law, for doing those things illegally.
Just for the purposes of making some money, because when you boil it all down, that's all this is really about. It's not about protecting the community. It's not about keeping our streets safe. In many different aspects,
we have to understand too that law enforcement does a lot more than just protect our streets and keeping cities and towns safe. Now, part of that is making sure people such as Mr. Killoran here, when they act stupid and act out of sorts and whatnot, that if they are breaking the law, they're held accountable. It's not just protecting the streets. It's not just making sure the city's safe. There's more that goes on with that. And so there again, he's upset.
Create the situations so that way they can profit off of the interaction or the transaction, whatever you want to call it. They play on people's ignorance. I think it's just the greed aspect. It's the love.
Now, let me tell you something. When a cop gets up and goes to work in the morning, the first thing they're not thinking about is how much money they can get from somebody or from the people of the city. They get up in the morning, and I can guarantee you, and this is coming from my father, who is a retired officer of the law, of the thing is they get up in the morning and they think about their family. They think about protecting and serving and doing what's right. They think about, am I going to make it home again tonight after my shift? Those are the things that are going through their mind, not thinking about, greed, let's make money. That's not what they're thinking about.
Love of money, that's the root of all evil. These people have sold their soul and apparently don't have a conscience anymore. Or maybe they're just that stupid that they're doing this job and don't actually realize what it is that they're doing. They think it's okay to assault people, put their hands on people, threaten people's lives, use their firearms on people.
So what he's continuously talking about is his incident. Now, if you go to his channel, there are 2 videos at the very beginning of all his videos. You got to go all the way down, okay? You got to get through that noise BS that he's got posted on there. But there's 2 videos of the officer is trying to get his attention. He's been pink slipped in the state of Ohio. And what that means is the judge has issued a warrant for him, not for his arrest, but for him to be detained and taken to the hospital to get a competency exam, a mental health exam done to make sure that he's stable. He's not going to hurt him or anybody else. During that time, he was very violent. He was very aggressive in his language. And so the police, of course, you don't see all the stuff he's talking about because his camera is held down. It's held just high enough. And one of the officers, because of the way he was acting, the way Brandon was talking and yelling at this officer in a very aggressive tone, the officer then turned around and drew his sidearm. Now, he had it in the ready position. It wasn't pointed at him. I believe another officer drew his taser. And so they were going to go non-lethal first, of course. That's and the officer at the door was actually very calm until Brandon escalated it with his aggressive tones and the way he was acting and screaming and yelling. So, you know, he's still very upset about that. He didn't get the reaction that he wanted.
You know, that's never an adequate response unless their lives are being threatened. But isn't it funny how they can stretch that idea? Or like, for example, when I see these videos all the time, when these cops put themselves in position so they can escalate the use of force. When they step in front of a car, so that way it appears as if the operator is going to run them over, or the driver, whatever you want to call them. When if they would have just stayed where they were, they couldn't have claimed that same.
So before he gets it into his delusional state here of trying to say officers put themselves in danger just to be able to get to that point to use their weapon. Actually, the reason why officers do that is because you're a danger. You're presenting a danger to not only other people, but to themselves. So yes, they stand in front of you because they are that line. They are that wall between you and all the other people on the road, if it's with a car, or you in a doorway, so you can't get out and cause harm. So, he talks about this. I've seen the officers, stand in front of a car. And yes, they will raise their firearm. Why? That's a deterrent for you to want to drive over them. They've told you to get out of the car. They've told you to shut the car off. You refuse to do that. So now if you decide to use your car as a weapon against them, well, they're going to retaliate, and they have the law on their side to do so. It's not a ploy to just, I want to use excessive force today, so I'm going to stand in front of a car and tell them to run me over so I can shoot. No, that's not what that is at all. They're doing that to stop you from causing more damage, from getting back on the road or back outside of a building to cause issues. That's why they do what they do. So again, his delusions are so huge that he actually believes this. That's the sad part.
Same type of fear. But see, they put themselves in these, they train this. They put themselves in that situation. I've seen videos where...
Yes, police officers are trained. It's just like a firefighter or a military member, especially infantry, special forces. They are trained to literally stand in the way of danger. That's the whole purpose of their job. A firefighter's job is to run into that burning building to save whoever may still be in there or look for them. Their job is to get as close to that structure fire as possible to put it out, or to control the area, get on that ladder to shoot water into it, regardless of how high the flames or explosions might be. Same thing with police officers. They are trained to, obviously lowest resolution possible. They don't want to, no cop gets up in the morning and says, today I want to shoot 5 people. No, that's the last thing on their mind. They want to have good, positive interactions with the public. However, in that same regard, they're also trained that if a perpetrator does this, or a criminal does this, or a person does this, we react like this. So the reaction of a law enforcement officer is equal to the action of the person, of the so-called suspect. So it's not they're raising higher. No, they're meeting that action. And yes, if they have to draw their weapon to get you to stand down, then so be it. If they just have to stand in front of the car to get you to realize, man, this is not a good idea. Okay, yep, turn off, put the keys on the dash, hands are up, I'm getting out. So again, it's those small things like that. And he's saying, I've seen all these videos. No, you haven't seen any video that shows anywhere where they're saying, you need to stand in front of a car so that way if they hit you with the car, you can use excessive force. No department teaches anything remotely like that. But in his mind, they do, in all his videos.
Even if they don't get in front of the vehicle or the car or automobile, they'll put their foot on.
No, he's going to tell you that officers will put their feet in front of a car tire. That is not true. An officer will not do that. Why? Because it incapacitates the officer. What they'll do is they'll stand in front, center of the car. Because if you do go forward, they can get right on the hood of the car. They're not. They know how to react to that. They're not going to set their foot under a tire to get ran over. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's literally this right here.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
That's exactly what that is right there.
underneath a wheel. So that way, when the driver goes to move the property,
Use that word
well,
property.
isn't it
Yes,
just
we know it's
convenient
their
that there's a
property.
foot in the way of the tire? Well, then all of a sudden that's considered assault.
Love to see these videos he's
But it's
talking
funny
about.
because these tyrants put themselves in those positions. They ask for it, but there's no accountability.
So wait a minute. For now, they're tyrants. He has no idea what a tyrant is at all. None. Secondly, no officer is asking for any sort of violence against himself or anybody else. So there's that other sad SovCit belief that officers are just out there, excuse me, to cause violence. No, that is not true. Good try though.
So, they commit the treason. They put themselves in situations where they can escalate the use of force and hurt somebody, possibly even take their life.
Then don't do something stupid.
It's truly unconscionable. Not only what they're doing, and they think that it's justified.
It is
They
justified.
think that it's okay. They think that it's authorized by law.
It is.
It absolutely is not. These
Show
people
me
are
where it's not.
delusional. There are.
Please show me where if an officer has to use force, it's not legal. It may not be what they want to do, and no department is out there saying, hey, guys, use excessive force or use force in all your stops. No. Use your better judgment. That's why all these cops, the majority of them now, have body cams on. There's always, for the most part, been cameras in the cars. And now all of a sudden, the delusion that he's talking about is the one that soft citizens have is, oh, yeah, this isn't legal what they're doing. Yes, it is completely legal what they're allowed to do. If you don't believe me, go and look up the laws in your states, usually in the revised codes, for what law enforcement is allowed to do. And if you have no idea what would happen, if an officer's involved in a shooting, 9 times out of 10, they're put on almost like they're moved out of their patrol pattern and put into an administrative duties until an investigation is completed. And it's not just by the department. No. 9 times out of 10, they have a private third-party investigator that will go and investigate this to make sure that whatever the department found matches up. And if it doesn't, well, now there's a discrepancy and some more investigation needs to happen. So again, this off-the-wall thought process of his is just amazing.
No laws established that authorize the use of force of this manner on people, say, that supposedly committed traffic violations, minor infractions.
They're not minor infractions. Okay, so let's talk about traffic stops here for a minute. So your moops and your stop sits, well, what right do you have to pull me over? Nope, that's color of law. I'm a free man on the land. I'm traveling. You're traveling from point A to point B. That's what traveling is. Okay. And you don't have a right to travel. You have freedom of movement. And what that was meant for was to travel between states. You have the right, the freedom of movement between state A and state B. It doesn't say you have the right to get in a 1-ton vehicle and barrel it down the public highways with other drivers, without a driver's license, without insurance, and without registration. Nowhere, anywhere in the Constitution, any law does it ever state that. Yes, you have a right to travel. I agree with you. With your 2 legs. Not with a car, not in an airplane, not in a dump truck, not in a boat. All those things, because of the danger that they can possibly pose to others, they have to be registered. They have to be insured. A lot of times states require boater safety courses. Michigan is a prime example. To be a hunter at a young age, I think if you wanted to hunt starting at age 12, you had to take hunter safety course. And you had to have that little certificate that stated, yeah, I took hunter safety to be able to hunt, to be able to buy your first license for deer. So again, it's making sure that you have at least a basic understanding of safety and common sense to operate these vehicles. That's the whole point behind that driver's license. It states that, yes, I took driver's ed, I took those tests, I took the road test, I took the paper test. I try to keep my driving record pretty clean. I might have a speeding ticket here or there, but I do know how to operate my vehicle safely on the roadways. That's what that driver's license says. And upon getting that driver's license, and I know they hate that, technically they all should be named operator's licenses, and then you can get away from 90% of the SovCit bullshit. But with that also is now you get your registration, because they take that operator's license and they say, oh yeah, this person, they're good to go. They don't have any other issues because they run that number. And they know that before they give you that operator's license. Same thing with insurance. They look at your age. They look at your driving record. They look at the age of the car to make sure that it's still safe and worthy to be on the roadways. They look at your driving record to make sure you don't have a whole bunch of tickets. Even if you had a ticket 10 years ago, they want to see what that ticket was about. They want to make sure they're not insuring someone that has 800 speeding tickets on their record. So again, he has no idea what he's talking about. That's the sad thing. He's reading from a script. I really want to see these contracts that they're getting ready to send out.
I mean, hell, even the situation that I was in, that they dragged me through, there was no victims. Nobody was injured. Nobody was hurt. That was even admitted to on the stand by these idiots. It was a color of law action. It's as simple as that. It was a color of law action that they created to silence me.
No, it was your continued harassment of the ladies, of the dispatchers, that you continuously mocked, slandered. Your tone was so disrespectful. I know if I ever were to talk to somebody like that, especially in a position such as law enforcement, regardless if they were an officer or a dispatcher, and my parents ever heard me, oh man, I'd be wondering what hit me. I mean, it's just utter disrespect and it's harassment. I have his phone records, how many times he called dispatch in like a day. It's crazy. In a month. And it's ridiculous. It's absolutely 100% ridiculous. And it did meet the criteria of telecommunications, the ordinance that is in Zanesville. And so I'm still really shocked that they dropped those charges. But it wasn't to silence him. It was because of the constant belittling and harassment and disrespect and just ugliness that came out of him during those calls.
If anything, it might have been, well, I mean, I guess you consider it political persecution. But it's persecution.
And no, there was no political persecution.
Persecution nonetheless. Probably be characterized multiple different ways. But it's persecution nonetheless. These incompetent, quota hire secretaries do their job or didn't want to do their job.
So there it is. That you heard it right there. I mean, right away. They're not secretaries. They're dispatchers. Completely different job. And they did their job. They did it the way they were trained to do it, and they did it the way they were told to do it. Excuse me. Also, they're not quota hires. They are actual, regular, full-time employees. They're not a quota hire. There's no number because they're females. That's that sexist remark right there from him. And so he's upset because they were told a certain way to handle that problem.
Or maybe they just wanted to get in on the action and hurt somebody. Instigate a situation where they could, send these bullies, these tyrants to, come attack like good dogs. But anyways, kind of getting off topic. When these incompetent, quote unquote, public servants, bad actors, treasonous, cunts, when they receive my contracts, it's going to state in there that they knowingly and willfully committed treason by conflating jurisdictions, by using the color of law to attack me and assault me and threaten my life.
That color of law, no, it was the actual law
multiple times over, which they don't have the jurisdiction or the authorization to do.
Yes, they do have the authorization and jurisdiction to do. You live in the city of Zanesville, Ohio. They have the jurisdiction over you because those police officers, that's their jurisdiction, is the city of Zanesville. You live in the city of Zanesville. And guess what? That's their jurisdiction. So you fall under their jurisdiction. Again.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
This is a modern popular misconception, because most people are too stupid to actually open a book and read.
So here it is. We're getting into this now. He's starting to get riled up, okay? He's insulted several people. He's insulted everybody in general. He doesn't say what book to open up and read because, he's not really opening up any books. He's following the SovCit playbook, the script. It's not a misconception. They have full jurisdiction over you. If you break the law within whatever city you live in or county, the state, and the city can arrest you. They can detain you if that's what it requires or come talk to you. They have jurisdiction. This whole stupid thought process of jurisdiction that the MOOPs play with, that the SovCits play with, that the state nationals play with, is ridiculous. You're a U.S. citizen. You're also a state citizen. You fall under the state and the city that you live in. You also fall under federal law. It's jurisdiction. I know you don't like it because your playbook tells you not to like it, but that's what's wound up gotten you in trouble so many times. And that's why you're in the heap that you're in.
Especially a law book. Most people, if they find themselves in any kind of trouble or hot water, quote unquote, they beg an attorney to help them because they're just too stupid to understand or comprehend, I guess is a better word.
Okay. So he's going to say a little thing about understand because, again, they think that means you stand under somebody, but that's not what understand means. Because that means if you stood on somebody or above someone, you'd be above stand, right? I think that makes sense. Anyways, so most people with common sense, because they're not trained lawyers, they don't understand how the law is written, will, yes, obtain a lawyer. It makes sense. If I don't understand something and I'm studying ancient Roman history, okay, and I'm having a hard time understanding this particular person in that time, well, I'm going to do some research. I'm going to find books about it. I'm going to find, who might be, I'm going to check my local universities. Maybe there's an expert on ancient Roman mythology or ancient Roman history that can help me out. Reach out to them. Maybe they don't know, so they tell me to talk to this person. If I don't know it, I'm not just going to read a book because that doesn't do anything for you either. You still don't quite understand. It's like the MOOPs with their Treaty of Peace and Friendship. They have no idea what that treaty means. Somebody told them that it protects them. And so they ran with it because they've just been told that. None of them, I believe, honestly, have ever read that Treaty of Peace and Friendship. And when they bring up the two titles or the two sections in there, somebody cherry picked those for them. They don't actually know what those sections mean. So they just spout it off again because they were told, well, this protects you. Well, no.
We got to be careful with that word understand.
There it is.
Like to use that to trick people.
Yeah, sure they do. Sure they do.
Because it's impossible for you to comprehend the law and reality. So you have to have an attorney.
Okay, I just have to say this. If you go back to the court case that he recorded illegally and you listen to him, he even states before that trial took place that he has no idea. He has very little understanding of the law. And then he represents himself in court. If you don't understand the law and understand court proceedings and how it works and how to question witnesses, because he gets hit many times on those, then what are you doing sitting here calling other people stupid because they won't crack open a law book? Just because you opened a law book, what do you say? Black Laws? That's Black Laws Dictionary? That's what they need to open up? That's not a law book. That's a reference guide. That's a definition. Those are old definitions unless you get the most current one. But again, he knows very little of the law. Listen to him talk. You know, he has very little understanding of what he's talking about. But he wants you to believe everybody else doesn't know what they're talking about either.
Act or represent you, act on your behalf. And these people are traitors. And
there it is. They're traitors.
In my opinion, I think we need to call for an abolishment of the Bar Association.
Okay, so let's talk about that real quick. The Bar Association, yes, that's the British version of it's like, how can I put this? It's like with doctors, okay? To write for certain meds, they have to have what's called a DEA number, okay, to write for controlled substances. Well, I wouldn't go to a doctor who can't write a certain drug that I need, or a doctor that doesn't have a DEA number, okay? Because that tells me they may not know what they're doing. Or in some cases, when you get your license to practice medicine in a certain state, you get credentialed, you get an ID number. Well, if you don't have that number, then I don't want to take any medical advice from you. All right, I'm going to go find somebody who does. And that's what the Bar Association is in England. There's the American Bar Association, which is meant for American lawyers. There's the Bar Association, which is the British version. Okay, so just to give you some idea of what the Bar Association is, it's a legal association, okay? The Bar Association is a professional association of lawyers as generally organized in countries following the Anglo-American type of jurisprudence. The word bar is derived from the Old English European custom of using a physical railing to separate the area in which the court business is done from the viewing area of the general public. So whatever he wants to try to say that the bar is, and trust me, you're going to hear his weird-ass SovCit definition. But another one, it says, what does the Bar Association stand for? Bar Association, also called legal association, group of attorneys, whether local, national, or international, that is organized primarily to deal with issues affecting the legal profession. In general, bar associations are concerned with furthering the best interest of lawyers. That's what it's for. It doesn't make you an agent of any other country. It doesn't make lawyers in this country agents of the crown. None of that. But listen to this scared SovCit and their bullshit, and here, you'll hear
it. In my opinion, based on my experience, the Bar Association is a cancer. It's a terminal cancer in our judicial system that isn't even an American system. It's not even part of the U.S. government.
The Bar Association is a legal association, is not supposed to be part of the federal government. Why would it be? It's an association of lawyers. It's not a federal government group or an agency. So again, where are you pulling that from?
It might be, an organization or a corporation that conducts business with the U.S. government, but it's not a U.S.
So here you go. He's reaching for straws. This is what SovCits do. Here, let me try to make you believe a little bit more of the BS I believe. Well, it might be a corporation or maybe not that deals, corporation that deals with the federal government, but it's not a federal agency. Well, why would it be a federal agency? Why don't you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I think that would really help everybody out here in delusional land.
Government organization. Not like the Treasury, not like branches of government. No, the Bar Association, if you do your research, it's an acronym, BAR, B-A-R. Let's see. To my knowledge, and let's see, as far as what these search engines say, BAR, B-A-R, stands for British Accreditation Registry, or British Accredited Registry. This is a British organization. This is a foreign organization operating on U.S. soil, subverting our laws, subverting the Constitution.
Jesus Christ.
If we, the people, are too incompetent, ignorant, lazy, retarded to pick up a book and read, figure out who we are, what our rights truly are, what these people really can and can't do. See, if you leave it up to somebody else to tell you what your freedoms are, you're never going to be free. That's a slave mentality. That's what landed most of these people in jail and prison. Because they didn't know any better. They were just acting like a good little slave. They were told they were in trouble, and they had to toe the line. They had to do what they were told.
So wait a minute. They're slaves because they broke the law, they got caught, and now they're in jail. That doesn't make any sense. They broke the law. Plain and simple. That's what landed them in jail. That was the punishment for the crime they committed. I really think you need a heavy dose of Adderall to keep you on point because you've bounced around so much. Let's continue, shall we?
They had to accept the court-appointed attorney, or they had to pay some, exuberant amount for some asshat shyster to act like he's working in their best interest. But it's a joke. It's a Ponzi scheme. So, yeah, that's something that I'm going to look further into and start to bring awareness of the abolishment of the Bar Association so we can actually get back.
Well, you better head on over to England if you want to get rid of the Bar Association. I just found this, and this was Mark Roman wrote this back in December 30th, 2020. He's a personal injury attorney. And so he wrote, and he's pretty much dead on. He goes, for example, there is a conspiracy theory that the word bar refers to the British accredited registry. The belief is that all attorneys who are members of the Bar Association are actually secret agents of the British Crown. In reality, the word bar, as it relates to legal practices, describes the railing or partition in a courtroom that separates the judge, attorneys, jury, and parties to the action from the general public. In England, barristers were legal professionals called to the bar as advocates for another person. Today, the word bar has become the term used to describe an association of licensed attorneys. It is similar to how the word bench has become associated with the judiciary because the term was used to describe where the judge sat in a courtroom. Attorneys admitted to the bar have based the bar exam and met all the requirements to practice law within a specific jurisdiction. Each state sets the requirements for the lawyers to be admitted to practice within the state. Each state also has laws that prohibit the practice of law without a license. Florida laws state that individuals can be charged with a felony in the third degree for practicing law without a license. So, again, what he's talking about is the conspiracy theory from SovCits and MOOPs. When in reality, like it says, the bar, as it relates to the legal practice, describes the railing or partition in the courtroom, separating the judges, attorneys, juries, and parties to the action from the general public. So again, Killoran, wrong again, buddy. Wrong again. And I think in best frame of my really good friend, Mr. Foley.
The true judicial process. So that way people aren't being tried for victimless crimes. I mean, that's kind of an oxymoron. There can be no crime if there's no victim.
Okay, that's another SovCit misconception. They think if there's no injured, somebody who's not hurt is not there, there's no crime. Well, that's not true. You speeding can cause potential injury to others on the road. You lose control of your car. Your brakes give out when you try to slam on them, and you hit somebody else and you hurt them. Well, there again, your speeding caused the issue. Could cause the harm. So that's why you're being stopped. Rolling through a stop sign. You roll through it, you don't see the car coming, bam, hits you, you got hurt, and so do the people driving the car because you roll through a stop sign. These aren't, as they call, victimless crimes. The victims are the citizens of the town, the city, the county, the state. There's your victim. When a cop says the victim is the city of this, they're talking the citizens, not the government of that city. They're talking the citizens of that city. So again, SovCits, that's what they attempt to get their cases thrown out, and they lose all the time.
A whiny little bitch dispatcher crying because they can't handle their freaking job.
There you go again. This is what I'm talking about. This is how he talked to these women, these professional women, these dispatchers who did their job and who on a daily were constantly harassed by this individual all the time. I mean, I've got the call records. So again, this guy he's off his rocker. Now we've heard him. Everybody is wrong but him. His narcissism is showing full tilt. He does live in a delusional land. That's SovCit world, which is a tiny little speck out in the middle of nowhere, probably. And so this is what we get from him.
Isn't a victim. It's a drama queen.
Wow. Can we call the kettle black here? I mean, you were complaining about a noise that couldn't be heard unless you, one, went outside to hear it, or two, drove out to the place to call the police while you were filming the place from across the street of the said business. Now, if that's not a Karen and a whiny little bitch, I don't know what is.
So there's a difference. Unfortunately, all of their nepotistic buddies in the courts, these prosecutors, hell, even the damn juries, they pander to these freaking... I can't even think of a good word to fully describe these soulless creatures.
Soulless.
Sold their soul for a paycheck.
Sold their soul for a paycheck.
And then
or they're doing their job and you just don't like the outcome of them doing their job. That sounds more like the truth.
Get a kick out of harming people, threatening people. You know, or maybe it's just me because I'm a man, and maybe there's that programming these days where women are programmed to hate men.
I don't think it's because you're a man, because you're a beta. You're a beta. You're not a man of any stature, that's for sure. And trust me, it's not because you're a man. And women aren't programmed as you like. This is the sexist part I was talking about him. Women are not programmed to hate men. It's just dumb men like you that cause women to form that thought that most men are like you. Assholes.
Hell, even men are programmed to hate themselves and other men.
I don't hate myself. I love myself. I'll tell you right now. I'm a narcissist through and through. I'll tell you, I don't hate myself at all. But I mean, obviously he does, which is sad. That's really sad that you don't. That you think you hate yourself. That's sad. That's kitty cry sad.
So, treason is the reason for the season.
But there's no treason. You have no proof.
These traitors will, whether in this lifetime or the next, be held accountable for their actions.
Oh, I love that one. So in this lifetime or the next, they're going to be held accountable, which means they're never going to be held accountable because there's nothing to hold them account for. There's no treasonous acts. To this point, you have not pointed out one treasonous act at all. You talk about it. You say in your contract, which I'm going to get on your channel and say, look, I watched this video. I would love to see these contracts. Can you post one? I'd love to see it. I mean, you're talking pretty good game here. So let's see these. You're talking treason. That's a big buoy. What's your evidence?
leaders will, whether in this lifetime or the next, be held accountable for their actions. And hell, I wouldn't be surprised if it takes many lifetimes to work out the karma that they are building up for themselves by performing these acts.
You sit here and talk this big game. What acts? What acts are you that did they commit that qualifies as treason? Please, I'm dying to know. I think the people that view my channel, even now in the live stream or later on, they're going to want to know what you're talking about, because I sure as hell do.
They're going around like vigilantes with guns and threatening people's lives and attempting.
Who are they threatening? You're the only one that says you've been threatened and your life has been threatened. But look, folks, once a week, I'll send an email to the law director in ZaneVille, because I try to stay current with what he's been sending to them. And the law director there, he's really good. I actually think he's really Johnny on the spot with this stuff, because he doesn't tell me no. He sends it to me. Either he emails it to me or he'll send me a printed copy if I ask. But what vigilantes? There's been no. What gets me is there's been no other people complaining about their lives being threatened but him. It almost seems like he has a little bit of paranoia. You know, that paranoid delusion where he thinks everybody is out to get him. And that's what I believe is where he has the issue.
To take people's lives. I mean, hell, half of what I heard was true about these out of control, quote unquote, public servants.
Now, wait a minute. Half of what you heard. Tell us what you've heard. So here you go again. You're talking about your contract and treasonous acts. Well, what are the acts? Now you're saying, well, half of what I've heard is true. Well, what have you heard? Please tell us. What have you heard? I mean, again, it's all speculation and hearsay. You again talk a big game, but you're not putting anything out there for us to believe you.
It's a damn shame. It's a shame and a disgrace, especially for a conservative area like this that, well, I thought was more interested in, the idea of the rule of law, being civilized. But no, it's barbaric. This is extremely barbaric is what's going on. And when you have people, bar registered, licensed attorneys in City Hall.
Now remember, the bar is that bar that separates the judge, the lawyers, the jury from the viewing area. And the legal association that a lawyer is part of does not make anything illegal, or does it make them agents of the crown, or what did I say, secret agents, special agent, whatever. It doesn't do any of that. So again, he's literally reading from a SovCit handbook is what he's reading from. Probably been watching those Anna von Wright videos. That'll do it right there.
Acting in these positions. They have multiple oaths. They've sworn multiple oaths to multiple different organizations, and
they swear one oath. If it's a judge, he swears his oath when he takes office as a judge in that court, and that's usually with the county. If it's law enforcement, they swear their oath or take their oath when they first day on the job or during orientation, I believe it is. They swear right there. It's not like there's a line or multiple oaths that they have to restate or it's signed. If you've ever seen an oath in office, it's basically what they say. They repeat back with their signature dated, and then it's witnessed and notarized by the county clerk. And then that goes into like their employee file. So they have it. Again, I'm trying to figure out how many different organizations everybody swears to.
Groups that seem to have conflicts with each other, or at least there's an apparent conflict of interest when someone acting in a position as a public servant has a duty and an obligation to act in a manner that's correct and appropriate to protect and serve the community that they were appointed over. But instead they their hands are tied because there's a conflict of interest.
What conflict of interest? I think, Mr. Killoran, what you need to do is you need to find these other groups that they're swearing oaths to and expose them. Really do a really good video and expose these other groups to show us this conflict of interest, because I only know of when a police officer takes their oath, they take it once and they take it before they start working for that city, county, state, township, whatever. There's not like a group or groups that they swear to. So, how are their hands tied from doing what they need to do? You're just upset and you think their hands are tied because you didn't get the outcome you wanted when you called 153 times inside of 3 months on the non-emergency line, complaining about the same thing over and over again, which you knew nothing could be done about. And the only reason, the reason why you kept calling, and we've done this, and I'm going to end this now because it goes on to the same thing for the next 20 some odd minutes. So in all of this, you've made your complaints. You did it when the city was going to fix it. We actually did a video on that. When the city was going to come and take care of this for you, they wanted to set up the device. You didn't want them to set up the device. You're like, oh yeah, it needs to be the closest house, from the reporting. Well, that would have been your house. You didn't want them to. You wanted them to put it on the easement, which wouldn't have worked because these devices can't be outside. And you were saying you were hearing the noise inside. Now, I want you guys, my viewers, to listen during the Paul spots in his videos when he's talking. You will not hear a single noise at all. So he's somewhere in his house, obviously, and it's absolutely quiet. You can't hear that noise. So, when you call 153 plus times in a 3-month time span about the same thing, that actually is not an issue that you refused when the city engineer was out there to install this device, to pick up the sound, find out what direction it was coming from, the decibel reading. You didn't want that because that would have proved everything you were talking about was actually false. What you forget to tell people in your videos that when you're recording the sound is, well, now you're the most recent one, you were out, you literally put your tablet out, outside, but that was outside. It wasn't in your house. You couldn't hear it. And it was so faint that you couldn't hear it. Now, again, I don't believe for one instance you're hooking some double shielded microphone up, because here's the other thing. He complained about the radio station one time bleeding through his mic. Well, I haven't heard that radio station bleed through now for quite a while. And they're not going to adjust their wattage because you decided to complain. So again, it's mind-boggling how these people, and yes, he falls into this category, these moops, these SovCits, they talk about treason and treasonous acts, but they can't tell you which acts of treason. He couldn't tell us who these other people he was talking to or what else he's heard. He just say, well, I've heard, if half the things I heard were true. Well, what'd you hear? Elaborate on that. I mean, he is exaggerating, but elaborate on what you're talking about. I stick with this pretty good because it's the gift that keeps on giving with this particular individual. And so I just stick with it because there's a lot more to it. I will be reaching out, like I said, to the law director in Zanesville and saying, hey, you know, I listened to one of Mr. Killoran's latest videos dated on this. He said he was sending you guys contracts stating that you guys committed treason. Is it possible I can get a copy of one of those? I mean, from what I heard, he sent it to several people in the city of Zanesville, the county. So I would really like to see a copy of this. And anything else he sent from the time that I've reached out to you before till now. And again, if I have to pay for it, I pay for it. Or if you can send it to me, you know, via email, or if I ship you a clean USB drive, if you can put it on there for me, that'd be great. You know, so I'm dying to know exactly what he is saying, because again, it's boggling. It's just mind boggling. I mean, every time he talks about treasonous acts, I'm always thinking to myself, nothing that has been done is a treasonous act. So, you know, you've got to be digging pretty hard. But then again, you follow that SovCit playbook, that's what you get. So again, I appreciate everybody showing up to Doc's Clinic. I do apologize. I missed yesterday's video, but I am going to rerun that back in the cycle of videos. I'll probably do a 2-video special. Tomorrow we have another video. We're going to hit on some of these some of our moops out of Maryland, the Enforce the Constitution group that's out of Maryland. Every time I see one of their videos, I was like, what? What'd you just write or film? And one of them was actually very interesting that I saw. They had it uploaded pretty recently, but they said it was from back in like June of 2020. And so I got all the county information, and I'm going to reach out to them and say, hey, have you ran into any issues with this gentleman right here or any other of this group, these so-called Moors, and see if I can get any information on them as well. But again, I thank everybody for tuning in, sticking with me through this stream. I know we're a little long here, but that's normal with Doc. You know that. We're always going to run a little long. We got a lot to talk about here. So again, I appreciate everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you mash that like button, leave a comment down in the comment section so I can get what you're talking about, and maybe I can respond back to you. I do go back through my videos once a week, even my older ones, and I look for new comments and reply back. So I do that, and I appreciate everybody who's viewing and helping me get my channel up to where it needs to be. If you want to support the cause, Cash App, $.goss is the place to do it. Any little bit helps. And again, thanks a lot for tuning in. This is Doc for Doc's Clinic. Doc taking on the Mormish. The clinic is closed. Doc's on his way home. I'm out of here. Have a good one.